Hello everyone and welcome to the Running Community YouTube channel. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification icon so you know when we upload new videos to the channel. So in our running community group we get every day people with different kind of running injuries. This could be Achilles, hamstrings, runner's knee, plantar fasciitis, even in the glutes, quad injuries and so on. There's so many, there's actually too many to list. Now, I'm not a professional running expert, I'm no physio, I'm no sports therapist, so it's hard for me to give out advice. I can give tips and stuff, but I'm no professional. So I'm pleased to say we've teamed up with a physiotherapist who has 20 years experience, and her name is Lucy Macdonald, and she's from Octopus Clinic, and that's a place that she runs online and in London as well. So I'm very thankful to her. She's came on and done a session with us and had live running injury questions asked to her, and she covered them all over 1 hour and 20 minutes. So this video is for you guys. If you've got an injury, you can find it on this video, hopefully. If not, videos in the future will cover them injuries. I've done a timestamp on this video, so because you might not want to watch an hour and 20 minutes footage, but with the timestamps, it will cover each injury. For example, 5 minutes in, there might have been a question about an Achilles injury. 10 minutes in, there might have been a runner's knee question. So if you look at the timestamps to find the injury you want to hear about from the professional Lucy Macdonald, that is what I want to make it easy as possible to be. So yeah, let's get cracking on and let's hear from Lucy herself.
Hello everyone, welcome to this Friday's Physio Q&A. We have a busy week ahead, so those of you who are joining on Facebook at the moment, if you could let me know that you can hear me loud and clear, then I will crack on with the questions that people have asked me in advance. If I don't get to the end of them today, I will certainly answer them next week. So those of you who are watching live, if you could just leave me a message just to say, I can hear you, Lucy, see you, Lucy, loud and clear, from Facebook, that would be brilliant. So we've got lots of questions today that people have asked in advance, but obviously if you're watching live and you want to ask any questions, I will answer your live questions first, and then answer the questions that I've been asked in advance afterwards. So please do start tapping away. Brilliant, that's great, Alan, really good that you can hear me loud and clear, so I will crack on. But let me just introduce myself to those of you that have never joined me on a Friday before. My name is Lucy Macdonald and I am a physiotherapist. I've been a physio for over 20 years now and I love sharing my knowledge with people. So what I want to be able to do is give you as much advice as I possibly can about your specific injuries. So as I say, if you have injuries, even if you've sent me messages in advance, please do write them in the comments, because I have a lot of injuries to get through today, and I will prioritise whoever has joined me live. So please do tap away. You can see at the bottom there, depending on which platform you're watching on, you can see that you can get in touch with me and my team on reception@octopusclinic.com. We are based in London, but we do virtual consultations, so geography is no object. So please do get in touch if you want a consultation. And throughout this session, I'm going to be referring to exercises that will work well for your injuries, that I have got that are freely available on octopusclinic.com. So if you go to the website octopusclinic.com, you'll see a whole library of exercises there. Right, so yeah, apologies if there's any delays. So apparently there's a bit of a little bit behind on, it looks like you're on Facebook, but yeah, internet does what internet does. So right, first question then, live. So I'm going to bring it up on the screen here. So I need some help with shin splints after resting. Should I start again and how far? Last ran mid-February. So I've had loads of questions about shin splints, so this is a really good place to start. I know that lots of you have been struggling with shin splints at the moment. For those of you that aren't sure what shin splints are, what we're talking about is pain at the front of the shins. Now, it's not a diagnosis, so it doesn't tell you exactly what structures are damaged and to what extent. So what we need to do is bear that in mind. Now, when I'm giving this advice, I'm going to talk you through the different things that could be causing it, and then give you some tips on how you can manage it. So anyone that's watching, even if you don't have shin splints, you should be able to learn some useful stuff from this answer. So first of all, what are the different causes of pain at the front of the shin? So at best, it's muscular. So hopefully, if you haven't had your shin splints for long and the pain is not too severe, then the pain that you're getting will be coming from microtrauma in the muscles at the front of the shin. Now, there are different muscles at the front of the shin. So obviously, if you in all of these cases, it's much better if you can get a proper diagnosis, but hopefully it's muscular, and therefore it's not an indication that you need to stop running. However, if you keep running through pain, there's a very high risk that it could progress to the next steps. Now, the next step is when the bones start to get involved, and you start to get a kind of bony bruising or bony stress reaction, as we call it. Now, that calls for rest, because what you don't want is that bony stress reaction to progress to become stress fractures, because stress fractures really do need a lot of rest, depending on the bone that is or the part of the bone that is damaged and the extent of the damage, and things like your past medical history, etc., will depend on whether you need weeks or even sometimes months off running. So you really want to try and prevent shin splints from progressing to that stage. So what do you do about it? So irrespective of which structure is damaged, it's really important to reel back in your load. Now, the difference between me advising you on this kind of forum and one-to-one is that in this kind of forum, really just from a safety perspective, I would advise you not to run if it's painful. So that doesn't mean go and take a load of painkillers and then run on it, obviously. I mean, as long as you're not on any painkillers and you have normal sensory ability, so as long as you don't have a condition that stops you from feeling pain, that sort of thing, you can allow pain to dictate what you can or can't do. So please don't run through pain. So when I say look at the load, you can sit down and you can write down, if you haven't already, write down how much running you've been doing lately. So particularly, or when the pain started to come on, how much running you've been doing. Not just running, but perhaps if you have a job where you're on your feet, then you need to take those things into consideration as well, because they may well contribute. But really just looking at that and thinking, okay, over that period of time, did I suddenly increase my load? And there's chances are that you have to some extent. So it might be that you've increased your distance, or you've increased your speed, or you've suddenly introduced hills or something like that. So you need to look at that and have a really honest chat with yourself, right? Is this the reason that I've suddenly got an increase in load? And that's why, whether it's the muscles or the bones, they are getting damaged in a way that they're not able to recover as fast as they are damaged. I'll get onto recovery a bit more in a second. So that's the first thing to do, and then to really bring back your running training, and then slowly but surely build it up again. Now, in the meantime, you can use it as a really brilliant opportunity to really get yourself strong. So you can do things like, presuming you don't have a stress fracture, presuming it's the initial stages, and so presuming that none of this is painful, you can do things like squats and lunges and deadlifts and all sorts of things to get your body strong. Now, one of the things that is often missed in runners, and I know I've had a lot of questions around this as well, is calf weakness. And that's considered to be one of the contributing factors in shin splints. It's not the only contributing factor, but it is one of them. So one of the exercises that you can do is heel drops off a step. Now, again, presuming it's not painful, and making sure you're going through that full range of motion. You can go onto the website. On the website there, if you stick at the top of the in the search tool, heel drops, ping, you'll get the exercise there, so you can have a look at how to do it. It's also worth looking at, so I've covered load, looking at modifying the amount of load that you're putting through. I've covered strength in general, so doing general strength conditioning, and specifically calf strengthening as well. Then we can look at the efficiency of how your body's moving, or in other words, biomechanics. So looking at Is it that your ankles are unstable? I've just noticed in the picture there's like a funny little white light on my face, but anyway, I'll carry on. Is it that your ankles maybe are a little bit unstable so that you're not able to be efficient as you step through when you're running? Is it that your hip muscles aren't particularly strong, and therefore you're losing some efficiency around the pelvis or the hips, and therefore exercises like like the wall ball, I'll come on to that in a second when I'm talking about knees. So looking at all of that side of things as well. Now, it's obviously a lot easier to do it if you're a physio, to look at biomechanics. That's kind of what we do and what we assess. But there's an exercise that you can, it's a kind of DIY running biomechanics called the Running Man. So if you go to the website and you tap in Running Man at the top, the Running Man exercise will come up. And what it does is it talks through your foot alignment, knee alignment, hip alignment, pelvis alignment, and then gives you an exercise that you can work on that. So that's my absolute favorite exercise for runners. And it might highlight to you, particularly if you do it with your heel raised a little bit, it might highlight to you where you might have inefficiencies. But to come back to the beginning, if you do have stress fractures and you go and do any exercises, you're going to make it a hell of a lot worse, and you could create serious problems. So please, please don't do anything painful, and do go and get it checked out. And as I say, I do the vast majority of my consultations by video consult at the moment, so it doesn't matter where you are, we can still see you. So, and depending on what charity you're running for or club you're part of, we provide discounted prices. So just get in touch by email and we can tell you all about it. Right, okay, we are getting a lot of live questions today, which is fab. I hope that answered your question. Let me know if you have any questions around shin splints and I will come back to them. I know there were plenty of other questions, so I'll come through to go through those as well. Okie doke. Oh no, I know, I did promise, I did say I was going to talk about recovery. Yeah, so at the beginning, and this is the same with anyone, this is like all of your injuries, basically, everyone who's watching this who has any pain or injury, or who's training and undergoing a training process. It's really important. So that when I talked at the beginning about load management, so the process of getting fitter and stronger involves creating a little bit of micro trauma to the body. It's totally normal, and that's the only way that you can develop strength, more resilience, more fitness. So you create a little bit of micro trauma to the body, and then the body does this amazing thing where instead of just replacing it like for like, you actually your body replaces the cells with bigger cells, stronger cells, more resilient cells, broadly speaking. So that process requires time, so you need to have time to recover, and you also need to have the ingredients for recovery. So you need to have decent nutrition, you need to sleep. Sleep is fundamental for recovery, and then stress management is really key as well. So take a look, and this is everyone that's watching, take a look at your recovery. I often joke that if people watch the video that I did on all the things you can do to recover, that we would all be out of a job. But obviously people always ask me about what exercises they should be doing, what treatment techniques should be, but actually really the most important part is the things that are in your power, which are looking at your nutrition, looking at your stress management, sleep, etc. So I might talk a bit more about that later, but if I don't have time, please do go and check out the video. If you put in the top of the website recovery, just the word recovery, you'll see some really useful stuff in there, and I talk more about nutrition and tips about how you can get a good night's sleep and all those kind of things. So hopefully that's helpful. Right, next question. So knee. So I suffer from knee pain and I have wear and tear in the knee. How do I strengthen my knees, please? Again, not surprisingly, I've got loads of people who've asked me questions about knees today, ranging from people with arthritis to ITBs, etc. Now, I'm going to answer first of all this question. So this is appropriate. My answer here is appropriate, particularly for people with just general wear and tear and or arthritis in the knee. Now, first things first, just to reinforce that, sorry, I just That's okay. So first things first, it's really important to recognize that running, we now know that running is not bad for your knees. Now, it very much depends on how you run, in terms of, if suddenly out of the blue you go and run a marathon, chances are your knees are going to hurt. However, if you do it sensibly, so if you do it in that way that I've described, where you slowly build things up little by little and allow your body to recover, adapt, become stronger, more resilient and fitter, then it's really good for your whole body, including your knees. We know that that sort of repetitive impact is really good for the bones, for the cartilage, and so that's the first thing to establish. So next thing is, what about arthritis? You know, a lot of people are told, oh, they've got arthritis, and a lot of people think, and I know this isn't the case with you, Lorraine, but I'm covering the other person's question as well. So people think, oh gosh, you know, this is inevitably going to get worse and it's just going to get progressive, and that's absolutely not the case. I recently did a video on knee arthritis for that very reason, because so many people do have this misconception that arthritis or wear and tear in the knees is an inevitable progressive issue, and it's really not. And the best thing you can do is to strengthen your knees. So how do you go about it? Well, first of all, there are a few movement patterns that are like totally fundamental for the knees. And by that, what I mean is, if you think about when you need to use your knees, other than when you're running, if you're getting up out of a chair, if you're walking down and upstairs, and then of course when you're running and walking. So what you want to do is you want to strengthen, the reason I'm saying that is you want to strengthen your knees in those ranges of motion that you need. So if you're a hill runner, you're going to need to be strengthening your knees in a much larger range of motion than if you tend to just run on the flat. So the kinds of exercises that are really good are squats. I mean, squats have got to be your number one. They are the most versatile exercise. You can, depending on how you put your weight, you can prioritize your quads or your glutes more or less. Go onto the website, have a look on there, and look at our videos of, so if you just stick in the top squats, you'll see the videos of doing squats. Likewise, split squats are great, which are basically, they kind of look like static lunges. And then other things that are great for the knees also involve strengthening the hip muscles and the ankle muscles, because the knee sits between those two joints. And if you've got instability or weaknesses in the hips and the ankles, then it tends to, or can often, manifest in the knee. So the kind of exercises that are good there are things like deadlifts to work the glutes, or variations, modifications on deadlifts, and then calf raises, heel drops, as I mentioned early on when I was talking about shin splints. So you want to be working those two parts. I have done a video, because I often get asked that one of the most common questions I get asked is, what are the best exercises for runners? And the answer to that is in a video. So I've done a video where I talk through my favorite exercises for runners, why they are, ranging from strength conditioning stuff, alignment stuff, and stretches. So that's the kind of what exercises to do part of this question. But more importantly, it's about how you're doing those exercises in terms of the range of motion. But even more than that, which is why I'm going to leave it as the last part answer to this question, is making sure you're building up in small increments and allowing, as I said at the beginning, those ingredients for recovery, you're putting those ingredients for recovery in place. So time, nutrition, sleep, and I've just forgotten the other one. Oh yeah, management of stress. So all of those things, take those into consideration. So I hope that's answered your question. Okay, right. We are whizzing back to Achilles and heel pain. Lovely. Again, really super common question. So really, I think this will be very helpful for a lot of you guys, either watching live or in the playback. So let's start with Achilles. So where's my foot and ankle? It's on the floor here. Let me just grab it. Okay, so this is a plastic model of the foot and ankle, just to reassure you. Some people are a bit squeamish and think it's a real one, but it's plastic, especially as I often call him Bob. So anyway, here's a skeleton of the foot. So the Achilles tendon runs, so it's the calf muscle runs down the back of the calf, the back of the bottom part of the leg, and then slowly changes into a tendon over the back of just above the heel, and then inserts into the heel. Now, depending on where you're getting your pain in your tendon, so I'm presuming it is your tendon, so the easiest way of knowing whether it is your tendon, or the biggest indicator for it being your tendon, because it still could be other bits and bobs, is by giving the tendon a little bit of a squeeze, and that will give it away. If you're feeling it either side of the tendon, then there could be other smaller tendons involved, but it is very, very common to get it in the actual Achilles tendon, and actually some of the treatments are pretty similar anyway, even if it's some of the smaller tendons. However, as I said, it depends on where you're feeling the pain. Now, one of the things that you've mentioned, Richard, in your message here, is that it's in your heel. Now, you have a much better prognosis in terms of it will get better quicker and more steadily with the right treatment if the pain in your tendon is right in the middle, what we call a mid-portion tendinopathy. I maybe might touch on why it's a tendinopathy, not a tendinitis, in a minute, but remind me if I forget. But if it's the mid portion, then it won't be we won't have to go quite as slowly with the rehab exercises. What are those rehab exercises? Now, we know with tendons, we used to give, back in the day, we used to give stretches and icing and that sort of thing for tendons. And now we know that because tendons, when tendons are painful, it's not an inflammatory process, hence why it's not a tendinitis anymore, because itis means inflammation of. It's a tendinopathy. So we know that there have been changes in the structure of the tendon to get to the point where it is then painful. So it's no longer appropriate just to ice it, rest it, stretch it. In fact, we know that stretching could well make, and we know that in some tendons it does make them worse. So it's just best off to load the tendon rather than stretch it. So I would advise against doing calf stretches, so against the kind of thing where you put your leg behind you and you do a sort of static calf stretch. And instead I would recommend, but there's a caveat before, so don't go rushing out the door as soon as I've said this. Instead I would recommend things like heel drops. Now, if it's a mid-portion Achilles tendinopathy, you should be able to get away with doing heel drops. Now, if the tendon is really sore and swollen, then I would not recommend this. And it's really important, whenever I'm answering any of these questions, to say that obviously it is much better to have a consultation with a physio. And if you're in any way concerned, then you just please do drop us an email. You can see our email address is reception@octopusclinic.com, or you can just get in touch with us through the website. But yes, if it is that mid-portion tendinopathy, then making sure you're loading the tendon through its full range, and not just by doing so. One of the things that I see quite often, unfortunately, is when I see people that haven't responded to physio previously, is that they've been given exercises where they're just going up and down on the flat, and actually what they need to be making sure that they're doing is going through the full range, but not if the pain is in the actual heel itself. So it might be that we need to start with static loading, because that can give automatic and immediate pain relief. But depending on how painful it is, it's really important that you don't push through the pain as well. So it's all about getting that balance right. So you want to be just the right side of the line, which is that it's a little bit uncomfortable, but around about a sort of 2 or 3 out of 10 on the pain scale. But you don't want to be tipping over that level, because if you tip over that level, you might end up creating more pain, aggravating the tendon, and then ending up not being able to load it, and then ending up in a negative spiral again. So tendons are always all about loading. If it is in the actual heel bone, then you must avoid doing heel drops. And when you introduce that kind of range of motion, you have to do it very slowly and gradually. And it will also mean that you'll have to really pull back your running, unfortunately. However, as I say, if it's in the middle of the tendon and a mid-portion tendon, then you should be able to maintain some degree of running, albeit just modifying it. So we've talked a hell of a lot about the local tendon issue, but it does, what we always have to think about with all injuries is not just what's happening locally with the local injury, in this case a tendon, an Achilles tendon problem, but why is it that that bit of your body has become damaged? Now, it might be a simple matter of increased excessive load, but it also makes you wonder, why is it that on that particular side of your body, you're getting pain in that particular location? And that's where we need to look at biomechanics. And I'm not sure if you've been watching since the beginning of this video, but I talked about a favorite DIY biomechanics video that I've got on the website called the Running Man exercise. Now, obviously, it's better if I can see you on a video consult and I can look at you doing single knee bends and that kind of stuff. But what you can do is go and have a look at the Running Man video, try and practice it yourself and see if there's any sort of weaknesses or instabilities there that you can pick out yourself, and therefore then go on to say, for example, if you notice that your ankle's a bit wobbly, you can go onto the foot and ankle section and go through those. And likewise, for example, if the hip is, you can do that. But what's really important is that you don't do anything that's painful, so that you don't create any further damage. Now, it might be, and those of you that might be watching who've had treatment with me in the past or other physios, you may well have been advised, and on a regular basis I do advise people to do exercises that are painful. However, I can only do that if I've assessed someone one-to-one, otherwise it could be unsafe. I'm sure that you guys can all appreciate that. So, okie doke, hopefully that has answered that question. Then the next question that we've got is shin splints. So, Sally, hopefully I have answered that question with that first comment. And thanks, Michael, for letting me know that. Do let me know if there's anything I can help with getting that referral for an MRI. Okay, next question. I've been getting pain in the ball of my foot under my third toe. It hurts mostly first thing. Calves also feel stiff. Any help? Welcome. So we need to be a little bit careful. I've touched already on stress factors in runners a little bit with regard to the shin splints. The feet are another area that can be vulnerable to stress fractures in runners, along with hips. So although it's unlikely, so the vast majority of foot pain in runners is not a stress fracture, it is possible, and therefore we do need to sort of bear that in mind in the back of our minds, because if you do have a stress fracture or the precursor to a stress fracture, which is a stress reaction, you really do need to rest. And it's, you know, I often in fact, I did have a question as well from someone in advance who said, what are the niggles? What was the question? We all run with niggles. What are the key niggles, warning signs that I really, really need to listen to and take a break to avoid long-term on the sidelines? And the answer to that question, or part of the answer to that question, is if there's the three parts, the areas of the body that are most commonly, and not only, but commonly associated with stress fractures are the feet, the shins, the hips, to a lesser extent the knees. So if there's a potential that there is there's some bony involvement, that's when we get serious. There's a couple of other things that actually are relevant to this question as well, because you mentioned your calves feeling stiff. Now, you're mentioning just a bit of stiffness in your calves, so it's highly unlikely to be any of the serious things. But one of the things that we again need to watch out for with people with calf pain is two things: the DVT, which is a deep vein thrombosis that can be life-threatening, and compartment syndrome, which is something that can be limb-threatening. So we need to be, although they're very unusual, it's extremely unlikely that if you had calf pain that's the case, but we do need to bear them in mind. So again, it's always worth, particularly if you have sudden any swelling, redness, that sort of thing in your calf, or you've had recently had COVID or had severe COVID, because we know that the risk of DVT increases if you've had severe COVID. So we need to bear those in mind. But one of the most common things with runners is just straightforward muscular pain in the calves and or stiffness. The answer to that is, again, all about load management. And I've done a video, so it might be worth anyone who's watching this who has calf pain. I've done a whole video on calf pain in runners. So please do go and check out, just go to the website, octopusclinic.com, and stick in the top there, calf pain in runners, or just calf pain, and it will come up as a video where I talk through the different components of it. But basically it's about reeling back or modifying your training, so potentially leaving a bit more time between runs, or shifting where you're doing your long run, making sure you're getting your nutrition in straight after your runs, making sure you're getting a good night's sleep, or more sleep on the night that you've done your before and after your longer runs. So those, or a more intensive training session. So those kind of things. And then if you can have a period of time where you reduce back your running and you increase the amount of calf strength work you're doing, then that will help. You obviously don't want to maintain the level of, if you've already got sore calves, you don't want to maintain the level of running that you're doing and add calf calf strengthening, because you're just adding even more load and your calves are going to be even worse. So it is about sort of getting that balance, and perhaps temporarily reading things in with your running, or slightly changing the way that your running program is panning out short term, in order to be able to get the strength stuff in there. But back to your question, Heather, about pain in the ball of your foot. I would really want to try and understand what things like what footwear you've got. So if you've got some decent shoes, have you changed your shoes recently? Are they the same amount of do they provide the same amount of support as the shoes that you were wearing before? What's your job? Are you on your feet a lot all day anyway, so adding to, again, just more load going through the foot? Things like, so I'll give you an example. So for example, if you're on your feet all day at work, and then but you're noticing your pain when you're running, it might be something to do with the shoes that you're wearing at work. That if you can wear more supportive shoes when you're at work, then you won't get the pain when you're running. Do you see what I mean? Or if you can change the days that you're running so that they're on less intensive days on your feet at work. So it's always good to look at, not just when you're creating a running diary, a training program, if you will. It's always good to look at other influences in your life, so other physical activities in your life in particular. But then also I would be looking at the posture of your foot, so for want of a better way of putting it, so looking at the biomechanics. So what type of foot do you have? Now, very broadly speaking, and any podiatrists watching this are going to shoot me for saying this, but very broadly speaking, do you have particularly flat feet? Do you have particularly high arches? So if you have either extreme of foot type, then you might want to be doing some exercises to work the muscles of your feet. So for example, if you have particularly high arches, you might want to be doing, there's an exercise on the website where it talks through training pronation. So pronation is a really normal part of the gait cycle, so the walking or running cycle, particularly walking more than running, but and it involves the process of rocking from the outside of the foot onto the inside of the foot and pushing off through the big toe. So if you're getting a lot of pain over underneath your third toe, then it might be that you're not completing that pronation process properly, and therefore doing some exercises to train that pronation process might help you. However, conversely, if you've got a very flat and unstable foot, it might be that your whole foot's just plonking straight down, and therefore you might need to do some exercises to work the arches of your foot. And if you again go onto the website, you'll see in the foot and ankle section of the videos, you'll see a exercise where you stick a band around your ankles and do some resistance work. But obviously it'd be great to actually be able to see your feet on a video consult and do and assess not just what's going on at your feet, but further up. Hopefully you've been watching this the whole time, Heather, but up through your knees, your hips, your pelvis, your lower back, because obviously any kind of inefficiencies all the way up that what we call kinetic chain will have an effect on your foot. So we need to make sure that we're addressing those as well. And don't forget general recovery that I've already covered. Okay, next question. Again, I've had loads of questions about this. What is it about hamstrings this week? So I have a long-standing hamstrings niggle and also get dull ache and tingling in my Achilles. Oh, now that's interesting. I have seen a physio who found nothing, so while that's good news, I'm a bit puzzled as to what it is. I've been resting it and started the strengthen. Try and have a look at it. Doesn't come up. Hang on. I wonder if I do that, if I can see it properly. Oh yeah, I can see the rest of your question now. I have seen a physio who found nothing, so while that's good news, I'm a bit puzzled as to what it is. I've been resting it and started the strengthening exercises, but some days it hurts and others it doesn't. Okay, so the reason I said, ooh, that's interesting that you've got tingling in your Achilles. So often with hamstrings, because you have your sciatic nerve running straight through your hamstring muscles, so your sciatic nerve comes out through the comes out of the lower back in at various different levels of the lower back, and then joins together in a big nerve that then runs through your buttock, down the back of your leg, splits off down the leg. So most people have heard of sciatica, so pain down the back of the leg, but in your case, you do sound like you're putting it down to a hamstring niggle. Now, the reason that I've brought up sciatic pain straight up rather than talking about the hamstrings themselves, which are the muscles in the back of the thigh, is because you mentioned the dull ache and tingling in your Achilles, and because of the intermittent nature, so because of the variability of it. Now, those things are not entirely, they don't give us a very clear diagnosis. Obviously, I'd need to do a full history, have a look at your movements, etc., get you to do a few tests over video consult to really narrow down what was going on. But just those little things give me a little bit of a extra piece to the puzzle that makes me think that possibly there's something going on with your with your sciatic nerve. And then we need to look at potentially, is that pain being referred into your hamstring from, for example, your back, your hip, etc. So it is really difficult for me to advise without having assessed you, and it would be great in your case for me to do that, because it's really hard to know where to start, whether to advise you to do back exercises or hip exercises. Or so if I was to give you something, I would probably recommend that you go to the website and you stick in the words waiter's bow. And if you put the words waiter's bow into the search tool, you'll see an exercise will come up where it talks about isolating the movement from your hip. Now, it's really important that you only do a few of those repetitions. So you do maybe 10 repetitions, and then you see if there's any aggravation in your symptoms. Now, if there is any aggravation in your symptoms, that will give us some information. But obviously, I don't want you to go off, do 30 reps and then be in absolute agony. So do try that one, and also I'd want to do a test on you called slump. I'm not sure if the physio that you saw did a slump test. Again, that's not necessarily the be all and end all, because if you're mobile, false negative. But yeah, I think it would be worth definitely looking at those nerves, so looking at that sciatic nerve pathway and working out if that's involved, because if we're just isolating it to the hamstring, however, so if it's just coming from the hamstring itself, which, as I say, I don't think it is in you, but if it was, then we need to do a loading program for the hamstrings to make both the muscle components stronger and more flexible. Please don't go off and do loads of hamstring stretches. It'll probably make you worse, whether it's a nerve or the hamstring tendon involved. But we need to do some loading exercises to try and strengthen both the hamstring muscle itself and the tendons. So hopefully that answers your question, perhaps not as thoroughly as some of the others, but hopefully you understand why that is. Okay, next question is about calf muscle strength. So let me just check that I have covered this. So I suffer with tight calves. They're fine after I lost 2 stone. This was 2 years ago. Now they're back again, and I don't know why. Gait analysis was carried out 2 years ago, and my trainers are suitable, and I change them every 300 to 400 miles. So first thing about the weight loss component, congratulations. So Obviously, any injury of the lower limbs is going to be worse if you're heavier, just because of the logic of the increased load. So if you lose weight, chances are the injury will get better. However, it doesn't mean that that's the only thing that's caused the injuries. There must still be some underlying reason as to why you've got that injury. In your case with the tight calves, hopefully I've answered your question earlier about calf pain. Again, if you want to refresh what I said, please, well, either rewatch this video or go on to probably better, because it's just about calf tightness and pain. Go onto the video on the website, stick it in the search tool, calf pain runners, and you'll get all the information that you need about that aspect of things. And then, of course, look at the overall sort of recovery component of for those of you that have only just joined, of nutrition, sleep, and recovery, sleep and stress management. Now, and then looking at making sure you're giving yourself enough time between runs and training sessions and anything else that's going on in your life. And have a look at that video that I mentioned. Right, next one. Knee pain. I've had knee pain. It's really hard for me to read it while I put it up on there. So hang on, let's read it out first. Knee pain over the last couple of years, most likely arthritis, but it gets easier. I've now refrained from running lots and have started cycling. Okay, so Anthony, I'm not sure if you watched the beginning of this Q&A, but I think it might be really useful for you to watch if you haven't. So please do go back to the beginning and watch everything that I talked about right at the beginning about the fact that running is good for the knees if it's done correctly, and it's all about building it all up in small increments and making sure that your muscles are strong enough. So go and check out the video that I've done on knee arthritis, the video I've done on recovery, and the video I've done on the best exercises for runners. So that should cover it. This is a classic comment. Love it. My recovery is essentially eating cake in the bath. Brilliant. No comment. It's good though, because I think sometimes these sessions, you know, I'm always sort of talking about the really serious stuff, and it's always good to just have those kind of comments. So thanks for that, John. Okay, so on the more serious note, I have anterior pelvic tilt, and I'm curious about the relationship between that, my tight hip flexors, and my hamstrings. So this is a brilliant question, and it's quite a buzzy thing. If there's any physios watching at the moment, they'll all be going, ooh, and they're getting excited about it, because anterior pelvic tilt, basically what we're talking about is difficult for you to show me here, but here's your pelvis, and to cut a long story short, your average person, whatever that is, has, let's say, their pelvis in neutral. Physios watching this are going to have a field day. Anyway, an anterior pelvic tilt just means that your pelvis is tilted more that way, and posterior pelvic tilt is when your bottom's tucked under. So basically, your bottom's sticking out a bit more, and your bottom's tucked under. It's posterior pelvic tilt. Everybody has a different normal. Okay, so the best way to know what your normal is to go through the two full ranges of motion. Am I wearing the right clothes to demonstrate this close up? I wasn't planning on doing this, but I think I will. So if I show you sort of side on, so the best way to know your normal is to go through the two extremes of motion, and then put yourself 50% of the way between the two. So if I, for example, if I tuck my bottom right under, and then I stick my bottom right out, and then I go literally halfway between the two, that's my pelvic neutral. If I now go into what would be my anterior pelvic tilt, that would be it. And if I go into what would be my posterior pelvic tilt, it would be that. Now, what that looks like on the outside will massively vary from person to person, and it really doesn't matter. There is a value in your pelvis being in neutral, but in your neutral. So the whole concept of you having anterior pelvic tilt, you can see hopefully I've given you the information that makes you realize that actually that's not a problem, because possibly, or well, it's not a problem as long as anterior pelvic tilt is actually in effect your mid-range. Okay, so what I want you to do, John, is do that thing that I've just demoed. So see if from where you naturally hold your pelvis, see if when you stick your bum out even more, if you can stick your bum out even more, so tilt your pelvis forwards more, and then you tuck your bum right under as far as you can go, and then you go 50% of the way between those two ranges. If that's still where you naturally hold your pelvis, then nice. And I think you mentioned in advance there are advantages of that pelvic position. Is there a relationship between that and your tight hip flexors and hamstrings? So if your anterior pelvic tilt is just a normal, and in fact just your normal mid-range, then the quick answer is no. If, however, it's more likely to be that your tight hip flexors would be pulling your pelvis forwards, but tight hamstrings would not be putting you into anterior pelvic tilt. It would be stretching your hamstrings more. So for me, my instinct with your question is that your anterior pelvic tilt might be just a bit of a red herring, and that it would be worth just looking at why your hip flexors and your hamstrings are tight. Now, normally when a muscle is tight, and this is any muscle, irrespective whether it's the hamstrings or the hip flexors, it's normally because the muscle is weak and or hasn't been strengthened in the range of motion that is available. So for example, if you work your hamstrings but you only do hamstring curls and you're not working the hamstrings in a way that we call eccentrically, so you're not doing things like either Nordic curls or Nordic curls or Romanian deadlifts, that kind of thing. So you're just doing the shortening component of hamstring contraction and not the lengthening component. Then that can mean that the lengthening component is weaker and the strengthening component is stronger. So, or the shortening component is stronger. So you need to work the hamstrings in both ways. Likewise with hip flexors, you want to be making sure that they're strong enough to do the things that you want to be able to do. Now that's one side of the story. The other side of the story is that are your hip flexors or your hamstrings having to work harder than they should need to because other muscles are not working properly? Now, most people know that the biggest muscle in the body, well, I say most people, but maybe it's a physio thing, but anyway, is your glutes. So your big old glute max. And that's a really big powerhouse of the body. So really propels you forward. So if your glute max is weak, then you might have tight glutes, tight hamstrings, and in your case, you might find, because this is something that I've anecdotally noticed, and any physios watching, if there's any research on this, I'd love to read it. But anyway, that your lateral hip stabilizers might be weak. So have a look at the and the best exercise series for that on the website, you can go and have a look, is the wall ball series. So go onto the website, stick in the search tool at the top, wall ball series, and the exercises will come up. Anyway, it might just be, as I say, a matter of load management and all the other things that I've mentioned so far. So hopefully that's been helpful. Okie doke. Right, next question. I have been suffering from muscle fatigue in one quadricep for the last 2 years. Interesting. I've done physio, etc., but no use. Have been told it's IT band, but no pain, just severe muscle fatigue when speed distance increase at quad just above the knee. Brackets, no big jumps. That is an interesting question. So the thing for me would be, I'd want to know why you're getting muscle fatigue in one quad. So it's you don't just randomly get that. And when you say muscle fatigue, do you mean that your muscle is your muscle giving way? Is your if you've been told it's your IT band, that's more the outside of the knee. So, and we'll get on to IT bands. I will cover IT band by the end of this, because I know loads of people worry about their IT bands. So that's more tends to manifest more down the outside, but it doesn't sound like that's the case with you if it's your actual quads muscle at the front. So I kind of want to know what was it that brought this fatigue on? So you said it was for the last 2 years. Was there one particular event that happened 2 years ago that happened? Did it come on slowly? We really need to get to the bottom of why it is that you're getting this. And this is the same with all injuries. So come back to what I've already mentioned so far. It's so important to get your injury checked out, and particularly if it's something that's lasted more than a few days, or it's certainly a few weeks. And if you've had it for 2 years, I would investigate why it is that you're getting that. I think you need to get to the bottom of it. So I do think you need to get a second opinion, and I'd be really happy to provide that for you by video consultation if you like. So just get in touch, reception@octopusclinic.com. However, I think it's really important to bear in mind when you've got these kind of things going on is that if you do a squat, for example, and you've got one side that's either painful or weak, or you're less confident on it, you might well be naturally just shifting your weight over onto the other side. So I want to be asking you, have you been doing single leg work? So have you been doing stuff standing on one leg? So things like step ups, step downs, single knee bends, anything basically standing on one leg, and making sure that you're isolating that side that's weak. And then are you properly pushing it enough? So are you making sure that you're pushing it to the point of fatigue? So you want to be making sure, if you want to build muscle strength, you want to be making sure that you're really working at least 70-80% of your maximum. So what that often is if you say, for example, you do 10 repetitions, at the end of that you feel a bit fatigued, you then have to have a little bit of a rest for a minute or two, and then you do another set, and then you may even have to drop down to say 9 reps, and then in your third set you're either just about managing to do your 10 reps, or you're only making it up to about 8 or 9. So you want to be making sure that you are actually putting that much load through your muscle in order to make sure that it is getting stronger, and then putting all the other things, as I said, from a recovery point of view, that are so important, because without those things the muscle will not get stronger, it will just potentially get weaker. So I'd want to look at how often you've been strengthening, how much load you've been using, have you been going through the right amount of have you been doing the things that are required for running? So for example, things like plyometrics, jumping, So but really why it is, just comes back to that question that I mentioned at the beginning. Why is it that you're getting that fatigue? Okay, so, and I think this is the last of our live questions. So good, great. So even if you don't take time off from running, because there are advantages of running, just bring your running back a bit so that you're well within your comfort zone with your running, but continuing some degree of running is a good thing. If it's not painful. I can't remember actually, Heather, which injury yours was, but presuming that it's not painful, if you can do pain-free distances, and you can just bring it back a little bit, so that, as I say, you're well within your comfort zone, and then you can do calf exercises alongside it. But perhaps doing, I don't know, a 2-minute, 1-minute run for sort of 21 minutes, that sort of thing, depending on what your fitness level's like anyway. But just doing a little bit is better than doing nothing, if that makes sense. Then you can maintain all your all of the tissue resilience and strength. So right, I am now going to, please do tell me, or do, if anyone's still watching live, please do tap away and let me know. Oh, we do have 2 more. Okay, so this is the reply to my question about what's causing the fatigue in the leg. So fatigue, it's like you're holding a squat. It's not at the side, but right over the edge of the knee. I've done strength work, also single leg and rest, but always comes back. Yeah, we need to look at in more detail, Fran. So I think if you do get in touch with me and we can have a consult, that would be awesome, because you're sort of generically doing the right things, but I think we just need to tune in and look more thoroughly. So quite often on the surface, people might be doing the right thing, but it's not we need to sort of just be really super thorough with exactly when you're doing things, the intensity that you're doing them, etc., in order to get you back. But yeah, need to investigate that a bit more. Okay, next question is, I keep having neck aches usually when I fall asleep. I'm not sure whether it's the neck pillow. Can falling asleep with a neck pillow aggravate it? I would worry less about it being the neck pillow, Alec, or Aleki. Sorry if I've just probably pronounced your name wrong, which is really annoying. I know, sorry. So I would, as I say, I would worry less about your pillow. So normally people will feel pain when they're falling asleep, and put it down to things like their pillow or their bed or whatever, but actually it's probably something that you've been doing during the day. So I would have a look at how much movement. I mean, that's the first one that you need to be looking at. How much movement are you incorporating in your day? So a lot of people get very concerned about their posture, and there are positions that you can sit in that will be more easy to sustain for long periods of time than others. So for example, if you're nice and supported in your chair, you've got your screen the right height, or etc., then you're more likely to be able to sustain those postures without pain for longer. But more, it's down to how much movement you're doing. So making sure that you're doing general exercise. I'm glad I did pronounce it right. Awesome. Yeah, making sure that you're doing lots of movement in the day. And I say movement because, obviously exercise fits within that one. But even just going for a walk, even though that's not a specific neck exercise, that will help any kind of pain, including any kind of spinal pain, including neck pain itself. So going for regular walks in the day, depending on what kind of exercise you enjoy or your body is accustomed to, then making sure that you're regularly exercising throughout the week. And then, as I say, just get up and move. I've done videos on this because obviously huge numbers of us at the moment are sat at home working as a result of the pandemic. So there's a video on how to set up your workstation where I demonstrate how to kind of make adjustments there. And then there's videos on exercises that you can do at your desk. Now, more specific to your neck, if it's just neck pain and you don't have any other symptoms, so you don't have anything like any speech, swallow, dizziness, ringing in your ears, fainting, pins and needles in your arms, any symptoms, weakness, any kind of coordination issues with your legs, I know I'm going to miss stuff out. If you've got any other symptoms, then you definitely need to go and get it checked out, and I'll be happy to do that by video link if that would be helpful. But if it's just your neck aching at night, then I would make those simple changes that I mentioned at the beginning. On the website there are exercises for the neck, but I would recommend that you only do those under the guidance of a chartered physiotherapist or doctor, or someone, another health professional who is qualified to do so. You might be contacting me. I know I can see that you're contacting from YouTube, which might mean that that you've seen my neck pillow video. So I'm not sure if that's if you've seen that one, but if you haven't, many moons ago, a patient of mine showed me how to make a bow-shaped pillow out of a normal pillow. And ever since then, I've been recommending it and everyone, I mean, you just wouldn't believe the hundreds of people that have been, that have benefited from it. So literally, well, I won't show you how to do it now, but go on to the website again and have a look. If you haven't looked at it already, go and have a look at just put, I don't know, pillow into the search tool or something. And then in that video, I show you how to make a bow-shaped pillow that then you can fit nicely behind your neck, and then it's really nice and supportive. Oh, good. Yeah, you have seen that video. Great. Okie doke. Any other live questions coming in? That would be great. I might actually do a separate video in order to answer the questions to the people that have asked me in advance, because we've had a lot of live questions today. So instead of adding on all of the questions that people have asked me this week, I'm going to finish this live, and then I will then I'll answer those questions. But thank you very much to those of you that have joined live. if you have any more questions, I'm going to wrap up any minute. I can see that there's still quite a lot of people watching live. So please do ask anything else that you want to ask right now. And then at the end of this, I'm going to then open up a new video in which I'm going to answer all the questions that I've been asked in advance, so that they don't then need to watch almost an hour of live questions before getting onto the things they've asked me in advance. Please do check out our website. Please do follow us on all the usual social media. I'm more active on Facebook, to be fair, but also on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn. So please do follow us on there. Okay. Brilliant. Some of the people in advance have been made it, so that's good. And Alan, yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. You had a question though, so let me answer your question as well, Alan, or do you need to dash off now? So I will answer your question, John, and then Alan, I will answer your question too, as you're here. And you've been so amazing. You've been here since the beginning, so, but you haven't answered your question live, so, but I know that you did ask in advance. So anyway, hello, John. Hello and welcome. I'm glad you made it. So outside of the ankle pain, possible, are you thinking peroneal tendon? So let me know, but yes, that is a possibility. I think you've just joined us, so you probably haven't heard all of the other stuff I've talked about, ankles and feet and stuff. So pain on the outside of the ankle. Now, presuming that you haven't fallen over and twisted your ankle, which is obviously a different matter. In fact, could you tell me that, John, if you have fallen or if it's just something that's come on gradually? I'm guessing that you'd probably have told me already if you had fallen or twisted your ankle. So, so when you say the outside of your ankle, John, do you mean this side or do you mean this side? Because posterior tibialis tendinopathy is more on the inside. Let me have a look. Oh yeah, so here it is. Here's your message. Pain on the inside of the ankle, both legs, and then the photo there looks like it's either tibialis posterior or medial tibial stress syndrome. So yeah, on the inside of the foot. Yeah. So from what I have written down, that your pain is over the inside part of the ankle. Well, I would call the inside anyway, the inner aspect of the ankle. Anyway, if it is, yes, there's a possibility that it's either your tibialis posterior. I'm going to take your thing off, otherwise it's going to confuse. There we go. I'll put that one on for anyone that's watching. Posterior tibialis or tibialis posterior basically manifests down the inside of the ankle and can also manifest inside the foot as well. So where you've pointed to in your photo that you sent me could either be tibialis posterior tendon, or it could be the actual bone of the tibia, so medial tibial stress syndrome. They are completely different things when it comes to how we treat them locally, because if it's the bone, we need to really look at pulling you back in terms of the amount of load. If you can run on it, if it's pain-free to run on it, then I would advise you just to run those pain-free distances. Now, there's ways that you can maintain your fitness and those endorphins by still doing less load, and I haven't touched on this already. So you can do run walks, you can do so that you're still getting those, as I say, still getting those endorphins. You're increasing your heart rate, dropping your heart rate, increasing your heart rate, dropping your heart rate. So you're still getting some decent cardiovascular fitness, but with less of the load going through the legs. So if it is bony, then that very much is what we need to do. And if there's no pain-free running that you can do without me seeing you and being able to diagnose it, I would recommend that you don't run and you just maintain your fitness with other non-impact stuff like cycling or walking. However, if I can see you and I can diagnose it as a tendinopathy, then if it is tendon pain, then I can advise you to run through a little bit of pain in a tendon. Do you see what I mean? So if it depends on the structure. So if the tendon is the thing that's damaged, a little bit of load will be good. If it's the bone, load ain't good. Okay, so it's really important that we establish that difference. Now, earlier on in this video, I've talked quite a lot about shin splints, and I would, if you can, go back and have a look at those, look at the rest of this video, John, because I talk in quite a lot of detail about how to manage shin splints, because that would fall under that medial tibial stress syndrome sort of umbrella, as it were. If it's tibialis posterior tendon itself, then you want to be doing specific exercises where you're working the arches in a way that we call eccentric and concentric. So in other words, you want to be lengthening the tendon by allowing your foot in a controlled way to go flat and then lifting it up in the arch. And if you go to the website and you have a look, you go to the foot and ankle part, the video section of the website, you'll see a couple of exercises with a band around the ankle. And in that video, you'll see what I mean about training those tendons on the inside of the ankle. But again, it begs the question, why is it that part of your foot is being overloaded? So what is it about, potentially, if we start from the bottom, what is it potentially about the biomechanics of your foot and or your ankle that's creating that excessive load through there? So is there some, as I say, is there some instability in the ankle or the foot that's creating excess strain and an uncontrolled movement in there? Or do you have high arches, and therefore it's altering the biomechanics, and therefore that would be slightly separate exercises that I mentioned earlier around training pronation, all of which you can see if you go to the foot and ankle section of our website. So yeah, first of all, looking at the biomechanics of the ankle and the foot, then coming up further and looking at the strength of the calf muscle being a really obvious one, and making sure that you're strengthening that calf muscle through its full range. So not just by doing heel raises off on the flat, but also dropping it off the edge of a step as well, particularly if you do a lot of hill running, for example. And then the what was the other thing I was going to get? And then looking biomechanically further up the chain as well. So is your tibialis posterior tendon, is it being overloaded because, for example, your gluteus medius muscle, so the muscles that control the alignment of your knee over your foot, are those muscles weak? So do you potentially need to do, say, for example, the wall ball series, which works on training those muscles in a standing position? And then putting it all together with, say, an exercise like your running man, which I've already mentioned earlier on in this video. So I would look particularly at those things. So the band exercises that I've just mentioned, the heel drops, heel raises, and actually looking at making sure that you're getting your alignment of your ankle right when you're doing heel raises. So video 42, for some reason I always remember the number of that video. It's bizarre, but I do. So the band exercises for the ankles, the heel raises with the alignment, the increasing the range of motion by doing it off a step, and then looking at your hip control and the running man. But overall, again, coming back to all the stuff that I've talked about recovery. So I think you missed it at the beginning. So if you go to the website and you stick the word recovery in the search tool, you'll see a video where I talk about all the different really, really important components of recovery, whether you're recovering from a specific injury or whether you're recovering from training. Okie doke. These are going to be my last couple of questions, because then I need to go. Hopefully that's been helpful though, John. And thanks for joining. Okay, so actually, John, just to finish off on that comment that you've made, I haven't run since Saturday. The pain's gone completely. Tried to run Sunday, but it was too painful, so I stopped. Good call. I have done some range of ankle exercises using resistance bands. We'll see how it goes this weekend. So when I talk about resistant band exercises, I'm not talking about sticking a resistance band over the foot and then pushing down, lifting up, pushing down, lifting up. You've got resistant bands, which is great. Do go onto the website and look at what I mean by resistance band exercises. So these ones, you wrap it around your ankles and you're doing you're working on the arches of your feet. You're much better off just doing tiptoe stand stuff and more functional stuff if possible. So yeah, but that's a pleasure. Thanks for joining. Okay, I promised Alan that I would answer your question next, Alan. So Alan's question was, where's your question, Alan? Can you write your question, because it's somewhere on my list but I can't find it. So if you write your question, I will make sure I answer it now. So next question is about respiratory, so it's about the lungs. So this question is, I had a pulmonary embolism in November. Although I'm better than I was, I'm still a little short of breath. Will breathing exercises help my lung recovery? Roger, it very much depends on the cause of your pulmonary embolism and if there are other things going on. And you know, most people that have a pulmonary embolism, then that it's happened because perhaps you've had COVID, or you've had other conditions, pneumonia, etc. There's other things that have been going on from a medical perspective. So it really depends. The quick answer to your question is yes. Breathing exercises help lung recovery, full stop. But it depends on what other stuff is going on. So, and the type of breathing exercises that I would recommend depends on other stuff going on. If in doubt, go and have a look. And maybe this is why you're contacting me, because I did the videos that were really popular about breathing exercises for COVID. So if you haven't seen those, if you go to, probably the best thing, rather than the website, if you go to the YouTube channel and you click on COVID, long COVID, if you click on that playlist, you'll see in there I talk through breathing exercises and other things about recovering from COVID or long COVID. So hopefully that will help. But I think that you need to, if you're, I'm glad that you're getting better. That's fabulous. If the breathlessness is improving steadily, and I would recommend that you check in with your doctor if you haven't already checked in your doctor. But if it is recovering steadily, then you're able to build up your activity levels slowly but surely, and you don't have any other symptoms like fatigue, etc., then that's good news. But if in doubt, please do get in touch. So you can contact me, reception@octopusclinic.com, or just, as I say, speak to your local doctor who can advise. Okie doke. Oh, this is a bit of a cracking one. What are the best shoulder stretches? So this is a great exercise, a great question actually, because the answer is, let me just get my shoulder. Ooh. Oh, here's, I've got two shoulders. Anyway, so the answer to this question is, it depends what it's for. Okay, so first of all, stretches aren't necessarily the best thing anyway. For some reason, stretching, as in static stretching, gets the value of it is over inflated, certainly in my opinion. Strengthening stuff is more important, and strengthening through the full range. And by that, what I mean is, whatever activity you want to do, doing strength work through that range that you need. So for example, if you're a squash player or a tennis player, you're going to need to strengthen your shoulder through a much larger range of motion than someone that just wants to use their shoulder for example, getting unpacking the dishwasher or getting heavy things out of the oven. So and if you're, depending on what range of motion your pain is in, again, you need to make sure that you're working your muscles in the ranges of motion that are normally painful, but without pain, or with very low levels of pain. So it's not like, oh well, if you're painful with you know, if your shoulder's painful at the end of range, then you need to be smashing out loads of strength work at the end of that range, because you're just going to make yourself worse. The pain will get better. The pain will get worse. But what you do need to do is you need to modify the positions and do exercises that enable you to work the muscles through that range without creating more pain. And that's what we do as physios. We work out how much load we can put through your shoulder and or any other part of your body that's injured in order to create an increase in strength, an increase in resilience of the tissues without creating a pain reaction and a big inflammatory response. A small amount of pain, a small amount of inflammation is good, but again, back to what I was saying at the beginning of this video, I would recommend to anyone watching this that they don't do anything that's painful at all. Whereas when I'm seeing someone one-to-one in clinic, I will often recommend things that are slightly painful, but that's because I know exactly what's going on with their shoulder or their knee or whichever bit of them it is. Hopefully that makes sense, and you can see why I can't be more specific with that. So what are the best shoulder stretches? I think I've answered that. Now, Noel, have you then followed it up with any other information? So I think you might have also messaged me in advance. So let me just check. Or while I'm looking, if you could fill me in, that would be great. No, you didn't. So yeah, if you could give me a bit more information, Noel, that would be great, and I can be more specific with giving you the right exercises for your shoulder. Okay, so last but not least, Alan, and this is going to be my last question. So anyone who hasn't who has still got questions for me, please do join me next week. I do these every Friday, so please join me next week, and any friends and family obviously you're welcome to come along too. They're streamed on Facebook, Twitter, I think Instagram, presume it's Instagram, but certainly Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. So okay, right, so here we go. Noel, the person who was asking about the shoulder stretches has just messaged me to say that the pain goes up into your neck. Yeah, so this is a really common thing that often people talk about their shoulder pain, but actually the pain is more related to their neck or sometimes their thoracic spine, so in other words, a bit lower in the back. So with you, it's going to be probably more likely that we need to do some exercises and some stretches for your neck, for your thoracic spine, maybe for your shoulder blades as well, but certainly for your neck and your upper back. And with that kind of pain, it would be really great if I could see you for a consultation. If you can do that, that would be brilliant. The best way to contact us is reception@octopusclinic.com, and we can get you booked in for a virtual consult ASAP. Okay, I suffered a pillion fracture quite a few years ago, and last March started to become more sore running. I've seen a physio and have now been referred for surgery, and was just wanting to know the best strength exercises for my ankle after I eventually get my op. Okay, what surgery are you having, Alan? Maybe, do you know what, it'd be worth you and I actually having a conversation about this. But the long of it is that really, I'm not sure how much running. Are you able to do any running that isn't painful, for a start, would be my first question. And are you doing strength conditioning work for the rest of your body? So are you doing, so the first thing I would do, Alan, is I would go and have a look at the video that I did on the best exercises for runners, and I would make sure that your quads and your glutes and your calf muscles and your core muscles are in tip-top shape. So make sure that you're really getting all of those muscles really nice and strong. And you need to be making sure you're doing at least a couple of decent sessions a week spread out over the week of strength and conditioning. And making sure that you're using those muscles in the ranges. I know that you've watched all the rest of this video, so hopefully you've picked up some useful things in there. With the foot and ankle, I would also really focus in on proprioception, not just with the foot and ankle, but particularly in your case. So by that, what I mean is the body's positional sense, and the best way to judge that is to stand on one leg with your eyes closed. Obviously hold on to something, because the last thing you need is a broken wrist when you fall over. So stand on one leg with your eyes closed, compare sides. And either way, with anyone, so actually this is probably a good thing to end on, with anyone with any injury, it's affected. So it's super important, and it's also one of the biggest indicators of injury. So they've done studies on athletes and found that if people have poor proprioception, so for example, they're unable to stand on one leg with their eyes closed for a prolonged period of time, flail their arms around, etc., then that increases your chance of injury. So you obviously want to try and improve that. So anything, I'm not sure if you've got a wobble board, you possibly do, but things like standing on a wobble board, doing side to side motions, forwards and backwards, and really trying to feel, like with your mind, like really feeling what's going on in the legs, and seeing and feeling what's happening in your feet and your ankle. So kind of mindful movement, if you will. So not kind of standing on a wobble board, sticking the telly on and just having a wobble around, you know, really standing there and thinking, okay, how do my feet feel when I go forwards and backwards, side to side? How much movement have I got here? Okay, yeah, so you do need to be a bit careful. Sorry, Alan's just given me a couple more messages. Yes, so great that you're doing lots of strength work and yoga, but as I say, I would look at trying to introduce some proprioception work just for some really basic stuff. If you go onto the website and within the foot and ankle section, or rather if you just put the word proprioception, P-R-O-P-I-O, proprio, C-E-P-T-I-O-N. If you put the word proprioception into the search tool, then you'll see the videos for proprioception. But basically, yeah, standing on one leg with your eyes closed. If that's easy, if you can stand on one leg with your eyes closed for say 30 seconds without having to actually grab hold of whatever your hand is hovering over, then you can then start to add some arm movements, some knee movements, some head movements. When that becomes easy, you can then do it, as I say, on wobbly surfaces, uneven surfaces. So I would add that component. So make sure you're super strong in the rest of your body. Look at doing the proprioceptive work, and then depending on, let me just have another look at what you've said about range of motion and things. One small run a week I'm allowed, and and then yeah, so I would work on all of those components. So I hope that was worth the wait. Thank you very much for sticking with me to the end, Alan, and I look forward to seeing you over the next few weeks. So I will now, possibly not right now, but once I've picked up my kids from school, I will answer all the questions that I've been given in advance. But thank you very much to those of you that have joined live, and I look forward to seeing you in the coming weeks. In the meantime, I wish you all the very best. Bye, everyone.